News presenter Jon Snow was left stunned by the calmest discussion he had seen about Brexit yet, following a civilized debate between Michael Morpurgo and Robert Toombs. Michael Morpurgo and Robert Toombs took part in a very civilized debate, in what Jon Snow labeled the calmest discussion about Brexit yet, referring to the 2016 referendum. Author Mr. Morpurgo told Channel 4 News, "We were all defined by it. Suddenly I became this person called a Remainer. Well, I wasn't a Remainer. I have plenty of criticisms of Europe, but I love the place. It's my home just as Britain is my home. But suddenly now I'm this Remainer and I've got people who are Brexiteers. What an extraordinary word. It's a horrible word. It's an ugly word. The thing isn't ugly itself, but then you find that you are opposed to these people. And if you can't have a proper conversation usually, or a debate, you can have an accusation and you can have lots of blame, and we end up squabbling. It's supposed to be a divorce, but we end up with two divorces. The divorce of ourselves with each other, which is really what's going on and is the most painful, and the divorce which we are heading for through the referendum, which is the divorce with Europe. And the trauma of that, I think, is simply not yet recognized. It's having a bad effect on whether Remainers and Brexiteers are squabbling." Brexit historian Robert Toombs remarked, "Yes, we are, and the reasons are essentially the same. The EU doesn't work for ordinary people, and I think that's the main reason why people like me feel like we really ought to leave, not Europe. In fact, Michael and I realized before coming in here that we were both Europhiles, both Francophiles, both thought of living in France, and yet we have a quite different view because Michael thinks or identifies Europe with the EU and I don't. I see the EU as a power structure that is doing damage and that we need to leave. You think of it as an expression of European culture, civilization, which I just don't." News host Kathy Newman asked, "But you found a way to have a civil conversation about it. That doesn't seem possible in the country at the moment a lot of the time, does it?" Mr. Morpurgo replied, "No, it doesn't, and that's partly down to our political system, which is polarized between the two parties, and then within the two parties, there is more polarization. So it's all about the polars. We don't have problem here, we have different emphasis. This is a nuanced thing. It's about understanding other people's point of view. It's about empathy. We do this thing every New Year, a cup of kindness, you know? And if in fact so-called Brexiteers and Remainers sat around a table and found something which we have already done, some kind of common way of speaking, yes, we have different solutions. I'm not going to get angry with Robert. Why should I? This man has a point of view which is just as valid as mine, and I ain't going to fight about it. But I'm British. I want to remain British, but I also want to remain European." Ms. Newman concluded, "We've had a very positive conversation. Thank you both very much, Robert Toombs and Michael Morpurgo." Jon Snow added, "Possibly the calmest discussion about Brexit yet. Since it all began, the comments followed Theresa May agreeing to 2 Brexit extensions, with the most recent taking the UK's planned departure date to the 31st of October. The Prime Minister hopes to use the time to persuade MPs to back her EU exit deal, or an alternative agreement drawn up with the opposition Labour Party. The UK will likely participate in the European Parliament elections if a Brexit deal is not passed by the 22nd of May, after it was forced to accept an extended Brexit deadline from Brussels until the 31st of October.